Right, I've got some information here that I got about Jehovah and how people who oppose Jehovah, and that would include Satan, obviously, the demons, and the world of mankind, and also sometimes ourselves when we find that our imperfections and our heart get the better of us. We sometimes do actually fall into the category of persons who tend to oppose the principles that Jehovah aspires to. When I say aspires to, I mean he meets them always, obviously. They're not a challenge for him, they're all part of his actual makeup. So I'm going to go through a lot of those qualities and attributes and just mull over how it is that some people resent that about Jehovah, strangely. When we think about his justice and how he does things the right way, and we sometimes think that we know justice and he doesn't, and he's done things the wrong way. Well, what his justice does, in many ways, it exposes wrongdoing. Sometimes it takes longer than we think it should, and everything eventually is going to be resolved by Jehovah. And we've got examples in the Bible of situations that may have taken years to resolve, and one of them, for instance, was that of Joseph, when he was in effect kidnapped by his brothers, put in a pit, sold to the Ishmaelites, and then years and years later Jehovah's justice came about, didn't it? And the Israelite brothers of his, Jacob's sons rather, they all had to accept his justice. So Jehovah does expose wrongdoing eventually. He does it in his own time, but people that are opposed to Jehovah and his justice, they don't like the fact that Jehovah eventually holds people accountable. They oppose that. And what they do to get around that, or they try to, is they circumvent this justice by redefining what they think is right and what they think is wrong. But eventually Jehovah will bring about justice, that's the fact. And then you've got Jehovah's moral standards, okay? So the way he decides that something's right and something's wrong, And the world of mankind is deciding its own moral standards, and if you are not keen on the way someone lives their life, even if you don't say anything, if they find out that you're not keen on the way they live their life, then you're going to be opposed yourself, aren't you? But with opposing people that oppose Jehovah, they tend to resent that it's Jehovah that defines what is right and what is wrong, okay? Not ourselves, right? And Jehovah doesn't adjust, okay? So if something's wrong, he doesn't one day later, or a million years later, or 1,000 years later, call it right, or a watered down version of it. He doesn't call that right. His definition of what's right and what's wrong always remains the same. And when people do things wrong, they don't like the fact that Jehovah won't adjust his standards to suit theirs. So if their standards are slightly offset, they don't like it. And generally they feel that they should be able to do anything, okay? And to them it's unjust that they're not allowed to. And we sometimes get that with children, don't we? We tell them they've got to do something for a good reason. They think it's not fair. But when it's adults opposing Jehovah, it's more serious than that, obviously. Now, another aspect of Jehovah is he's got authority, hasn't he? He's given authority to his son, and only because he had the authority. Jehovah is the ultimate authority. Well, someone who opposes Jehovah and opposes Jehovah's authority, opposes Jehovah's right to rule, and rejects correction, any correction whatsoever, or disagreed. And they have the attitude basically that no one tells them what to do. That's how they feel. Then you've got Jehovah's humility. Yes, Jehovah is actually humble. He's not modest, because there's nothing for him to be modest about. Modesty is being aware of your own limitations. Jehovah doesn't have any limitations, so he doesn't need to be modest. We need to be modest because we need to be aware of our limitations, but humility is something different. Humility is stepping down to a lower level to deal with ones of a lower station than you. Jehovah does that all the time. The fact that he deals with human beings shows that he's got humility. And they struggle with Jehovah's humility. Why do they do that? Because it highlights their own pride and preference for domination. When Jehovah shows that he doesn't want to actually dominate, domination is different from rule, that exposes the pride and arrogance of ones who, given half a chance, would dominate everyone else. And Jehovah's mercy. People feel uncomfortable about that when his mercy clashes with their inclination towards harshness. If they want to deal harshly with someone in the congregation, let's say the elders or the shepherds, or even the congregation, deal mercifully with these ones. Well, if they want to, these people that oppose Jehovah are inclined towards harshness, then they don't like it, right? Because they might want to begrudge forgiveness or show a lack of compassion. And they don't mind judging others. They don't like it when Jehovah shows that he wants to forgive. So that exposes their harshness. Then you've got Jehovah's loyalty. The way Jehovah shows loyalty to those who show loyalty to him, and his exclusivity. See what they do? They resist his call for wholehearted devotion because they want to devote themselves to other things. And his call for wholehearted devotion exposes their divided loyalties, and they crave leeway. They want to be able to do what they want to do. And finally, Jehovah's love. Jehovah shows love because he is love. And people that oppose that, well, why would they oppose that? Why would you think they would oppose Jehovah's love? And the reason why they do is because they push back against his selfless love, because it reveals their own selfish motives. Because we don't show enough love, really, if we think about it, towards each other. We always need to show more love. But we don't want to let Jehovah's love annoy us, just because it reveals how sometimes we're selfish. But people who are opposed to Jehovah, they don't like Jehovah's love because it exposes their own selfish motives and their lack of empathy. And this exposure of their flaws hurts, even though it shouldn't.